here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home.
President Biden addressing family members of Israeli hostages at last week's State of the Union. One of the relatives listening in on the House floor was Andrea Weinstein. Her sister, Judih Weinstein, and her brother-in-law, Gad Haggai, were murdered by Hamas during the October 7th attacks. Judih was a Canadian, American, Israeli woman who grew up in Toronto. Her body, along with her husband's, is still being held captive in Gaza. I spoke to Andrea about why it was so important for her to be at that State of the Union during that moment and how she wants the world to remember her sister. Andrea Weinstein, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
So you were a guest of the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries. What was it like to be there for this and to hear President Biden talk about you and other family members of hostages, many of whom were there and whose family members are still being held hostage?
Yeah, it was a very powerful experience just to be in that physical space with so many important decision makers.
Yeah.
And, it was really a very special experience to be with everyone there and to sort of really be in the room and hear some plan directly. Just felt very poignant. It felt like there's no TV screen between us. It's like we are here now and we are having a conversation or listening to some very important
It must have felt
decisions.
like you and the others still mattered at a time when this has been going on for so long, that this was still important.
Very much so, very much so. And the other families have been incredible and resilient, and to be there together was very, very important.
What was that like? Tell me a little bit more about that. Obviously, everyone's going through different experiences. In your case, your sister, Judih, died. But I know that there was also a hostage. Mia Shem was there. So people either with family members still out, all different stages of this. What was that like to be around those people?
It was, there's this connection, and though we're in different situations where, in terms of where our loved ones are, and not only did my sister die, I mean, my sister and Judih and her husband Gadi, they were murdered. So
that's right.
I just, is, very intense for our family. But to be there with the families, it felt like there was solidarity and warmth, and that we're part of this same family. And I felt very taken care of in a way that these families are going through so much, still waiting for their loved ones to return and hoping and working so hard for their return. And they really appreciated and said, there are not 6 American hostages, there are 8. And they were very inclusive about Judih and Gadi, and that they too need to be released. They need to be laid to rest, with their loving family. And so it was very special to be together with them and support one another.
Yeah, I think that is important, obviously, because their bodies have not been released, so you haven't been able to sort of go through that part of the grieving process. I did speak to your niece a number of months ago when it was still unclear what was happening. How are you all doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the knowledge is the first step to some sense of closure, if you will, but it's difficult for my brother and myself and our respective families, and for my mom, who's not a young woman, to go through this is very difficult. The not knowing was also extremely difficult. So knowing sort of, I don't want to say helps, but it brings a little bit of closure here. And I don't want to speak for Judih and Gadi's children, but for them, it's their parents and it's their whole community. They grew up on this kibbutz. It's their Oz, and a kibbutz that was 400 and so people, has been torn apart. So it's a complex answer to a complex question.
For sure.
But we the importance to continue to speak about them and to share about them is very much an important part of this process.
We've heard it seems every week there's hope of a new deal where hostages will be released, there'll be some sort of ceasefire. Where is your sort of feeling about this and your hope in all of this?
Well, my hope is certainly that there can be an agreement and that the U.S. can continue to use their negotiating skills to work with all of the people at the table and to bring this to a place where all of the hostages will be released, and that there can be a ceasefire, and that no more lives need to be lost. We're talking about humanity. Hamas committed an act of inhumanity that we must not forget. This October 7th, what happened, and they are responsible for what has happened. And so we must keep them accountable, but we also must, just realize the life loss for so many innocent people is horrendous. And, we need to hope and continue to work and press on for release of the hostages and for a ceasefire, just so that no more lives are lost over this.
Let me just end on a thought about your sister Judy. She liked poetry. She was very mindful, from what I understand. She obviously was a great promoter. She talked about peace a lot as well. What is your favorite memory of your sister that you've been sort of clinging to these past number of weeks and months?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I think for every morning as I do my yoga, my stretches, that she'd always say, do your stretches first, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
We need to prepare for the day. And both she and her husband were vegan and yes, very creative. And she was a teacher and she used she wrote haiku every day. And please, you can find her on YouTube and just listen to her calming, beautiful voice, even in these very turbulent times. Her puppetry, her love, her radiance, which really impacted people. I'm wearing a scarf that she gave me.
Wow.
She's very much in my heart always. She just brought so much love and compassion.
Well, I'm so sorry again for your family's loss, but I am glad that you're able to share some of those memories and that you still feel like your stories are being heard and listened to. That's really important. Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it.
Thank you so very much.